Hello everybody and welcome back to the United Stand. Happy Friday. Today's show, as you can see by the thumbnail and the title, I couldn't quite believe it myself when I saw the report came out. Reportedly coming out that Dan Ashworth could have up to £450 million to spend this summer. I mean, I'm going to break down why I don't see us having that budget whatsoever. I mean, there's reports coming out last night that we're going to have to be really careful with the way we spend. I think we can definitely spend a good chunk of money through sales, and obviously due to the financial fair play rules may be changing, but 450 million is crazy. But that is the report that's coming out. Could a big amount of money to spend in the summer be what's luring Dan Ashworth to Manchester United, or is it just the name itself? Also, Sir Jim set on not getting into a long transfer saga with Frankie de Jong. Manchester United are interested in Frankie de Jong. Frankie de Jong might want to leave, but the Barcelona and Manchester United prices are a little bit off and they won't be drawn into a long transfer saga. We're going to get into that. Also, the failed loans of Hannibal and Donny van der Beek. Hopefully they can turn him around, but so far it looks like Donny isn't having the best time at Frankfurt, and Hannibal maybe should have chosen to go to Everton, who were very interested in him when the offers were on the table for him in January. Interesting stuff. Also, Eddie Howe's been speaking a little bit about Dan Ashworth and his possible move to Manchester United. It's looking very positive in terms of what Eddie Howe's come out and said around surrounding Dan Ashworth. To me, if you're reading into it, it looks like he's kind of come to the conclusion that Dan Ashworth is going to go. But thank you everyone for joining the show this morning. Hit a like in the video. Happy Friday. I've had a lot of people saying to me recently that I speak too quickly. So I'm going to try and slow down the way that I bring out the information to you, and I'm trying to be a little bit more concise with it. So thank you everyone for joining. Always appreciate your feedback. Straight up in the chat, get your comments in. How much money do you see us being able to spend in the summer, and what your priorities would be? Because we're going to start seeing more of these reports come out, especially now that Sir Jim is fully in the door. As soon as we start getting our sporting director in and head of recruitment, our recruitment team built, we're definitely going to hear more news about how much money there is to spend, what our targets are, and what direction we're going in the summer. So get in the chat what you think. Also, you guys, I want to ask your opinions on how do we make these shows a little bit better as well. I'm always looking for feedback, and I was looking through the last couple of shows that I've been doing, and I was thinking, of course, I know everybody absolutely loves Mark, and Mark is a brilliant host, but how do I make my individual shows better? Let me know in the comments, because I'd be really open. I don't think that there's anything wrong with taking on what people think, and I'm never going to be Mark. We're completely different people, but I want to kind of hear how you think we can make the shows better and more interactive for you guys too. But let's get into the news. I mean, first off, let's get into this budget and how much we are actually going to be able to spend this summer. It's not nailed on. There's never going to be a fee that we can get from a journalist. This is exactly what Manchester United's budget's going to be this summer, but we can sort of work out roundabouts. So it's coming from Football Insider. They're reporting that they have exclusive information claiming that Dan Ashworth could have a budget of up to 400 million to work with at Manchester United if he completes a move from Newcastle. And when I first saw 450 million, I thought, there's not a chance. With financial fair play, I mean, we couldn't even afford to bring in anybody in January. We couldn't even afford a loan move. I was thinking 450 million, there's no chance. But you look through this article and you look at the explanation. So the reasoning is that unless Manchester United pay a compensation that could be north of 10 million, the sporting director may not be able to join for a while, as he will be put on gardening leave. So Dan Ashworth won't be able to join for a while anyway if we don't pay the fee to get him out. It was reported it was between 6 and 10 million. Now it's reported it could be even higher than that. My opinions on this is I think we should pay it just to get him in, but you know, he might have to take that spell of gardening leave. And this, they say, could work to Manchester United's advantage, because by the time Ashworth joins Manchester United, the Premier League may be working under new financial rules after they were discussed in a meeting with all 20 top flight clubs last week. United have reached their limit transfer spending under current profit and sustainability rules, but the introduction of new regulations would grant Ashworth a huge budget. And the new regulations could potentially be, obviously this is all if, buts and maybes, but there have been meetings about this, and it is, the rumour is that the financial fair play rules are going to move a little bit and allow clubs a little bit more leeway. So The Premier League have proposed new regulations that match UEFA's policy, capping spending to 70% of a club's overall revenue. United announced a club record revenue of £648 million in 2022-23, meaning they would be free to spend up to £450 million on wages, transfers, agent fees under the new financial rules. So based off how much money we're making in revenue and based off the structure in which that we could be spending up to 70% of our club's overall revenue if the Premier League decides to match UEFA's policy, if that happens and the rules do change, then it would be feasible that we could spend £450 million within our financial fair play rules. That's on wages, on agent fees, and obviously budgets in the transfer windows. Obviously, it's all well and good saying this, and that's if this happens, but also you have current wages, we have current contracts, we have other transfer spend that we're still paying back on debt from the last couple of years, the last few years actually, that's going to eat into that £450 million budget. If I'm going to be honest, I think Manchester United will have around £100 million to spend in the summer, and then there'll be sales on top of that. So if you look at this, Manchester United actually have quite a few players to sell this summer and can earn a bit of profit. So I'm thinking around 250, 260 million is the realistic budget that Manchester United can spend in the summer. But a really interesting article about if financial fair play rules change, whether they change before summer, we don't know exactly when this is going to happen. It will benefit Manchester United. Financial fair play is a great thing. I agree with that. Not every club should be able to just spend however much they want. But for us, if they do give that leeway, up to 70% of what we earn, that benefits us because we make a lot of revenue as a club. We are one of the biggest earners of a club in the world. So we will be able to spend more money and it will benefit a club like Manchester United. So hopefully, in my opinion, that will happen and it will give us a little bit more leeway in the summer because currently we are really struggling under FFP. We're going to have to sell in the summer. What players would you sell? Get in the comments. And we're going to have to work smartly. This is still going to happen. So yes, under the new rules of the Premier League, if they do happen, Man United could have a £450 million spend on agent fees and everything kind of put together, the transfer and the wages. But we've got deals that we're still paying back from the last few years that's going to eat into that. We've got new contracts that is going to eat into that. So you've got to look at it and you've got to think what is realistic. In my opinion, I think we'll have 100 million base, maybe 150, and then plus player sales on top of that. But we still can have a very good summer transfer window this summer if we work smartly and if we get players out of the club that are not going to serve a purpose for us going forward and get them off for a good profit. And this is where you've got to kind of think about, what players do you cash in on, what players do you keep. A lot of people saying breaking in the chat. Breaking? Is there any breaking news? I'll go and have a look on Twitter and in a second. We've got some super chats in. Gark Moldbridge says, is that Will in disguise? Morning, Beth, we love you too, not just Mark. Well, thank you very much for that super chat. Dylan Barnes says, we should just get Mbappe for free. If only that was so simple. And Song Min says, so Beth, date for me coming to United or not. Song, you're very persistent in the chat. Son, if anyone watches these shows regular, Son often asks me out on my shows. And I think he said it yesterday as well. Son, if you reveal your true identity in the chat or you send me a direct message, then maybe I'll look into it going into the future. But I'm going to be honest, and I mean, I'm very doubtful it's the real Son. If it's the real Son, you know, you've got a blue tick. I'll be able to see you. Get in the messages. But if it's not the real Son, reveal your identity and I'll be able to weigh up whether I would like to go on a date with you going forward. So thank you very much for your super chat and your persistence. I really do appreciate it. Rishan Bhatia says, would you give Anthony and Martial another season? Martial, no. And to be honest with Anthony, I wouldn't mind if we sold him in the summer. I don't see a future at the moment. But Alanga did actually say that he thinks Anthony's going to be a great player for us and he's seen him play well in training and he's a good guy. I mean, there's no question that Anthony, his character is right. Ten Hag is so meticulous about character. And Anthony, you know, behind the scenes, I get told all the time, he's a great guy. Just on the pitch, he's not been able to produce it. And I just don't see him getting any better. But he is young, so we'll have to wait and see. we'll have to wait and see on that subject. A lot of people laughing at me and Son going on a date. Well, if you don't ask, you don't get. And did anybody see the video this morning of Sir Dave Brailsford driving? He stopped to speak to Man United fans, and one of the Man United fans says, "Can we sign Mbappe in the summer?" And I thought, you go on. If you don't ask, you don't get. I mean, on the Mbappe thing, there's no way on earth that Man United are signing him. Have you seen the meme where it's like, I love your enthusiasm, but you're never getting tickets to that show? That's us right now. Mbappe's nailed on for Real Madrid. And, Manchester United, they're just not in a place where they can secure Mbappe. And plus, if you do secure Mbappe, you're breaking the wage structure. You're paying multi-millions per week. Or not per week, but per month to Mbappe. You're probably bringing, how much is he going to want per week? It's ridiculous kind of demands. Is that something you'd want to go down the route of? But then again, it's Mbappe, and Mbappe is the best player in the world, in my opinion. It's one of them situations, but I don't think we can even entertain it, because I don't think Mbappe would even look twice at Man United right now, sadly. It may be, if, in a couple of years and we're rebuilding under Sir Jim, that's something we could maybe look to attract. But I don't think that's the style that Sir Jim wants to go down. I don't think that's the route that Sir Jim wants to go down, of individual superstars that are paid huge amounts of money. I think we want to be a team collective. But do you turn down Mbappe? No. Is he even looking in Manchester United's direction? No. Milton Davis, I think you should say yes. He has been asking. Thank you, Milton, for your advice. I can't say yes to somebody who I don't know who they are. So I need to know the identity. Beth and Son, follow the love story, more to come. But get in the comments what you think about that. But on the amount of money that we're going to be able to spend, so this is what I wanted to get onto. So say Manchester United have a £250 million transfer war chest in the summer, and that is going to be more than what Newcastle have to spend. Newcastle are really struggling right now with FFP. They've got players to sell, but I doubt that they'd want to sell. Like, they're not going to want to sell Isak. They're not going to want to sell Bruno Guimaraes. And apart from that, they've not really got any big hitters that they'd be looking to move on. They've got a very shallow squad depth of it is. They've got a good starting 11, but they've got a shallow squad depth. So you are going to have more money to spend at Manchester United. That is the lure of Dan Ashworth. Roy Keane actually made some comments about questioning Dan Ashworth's loyalty, and that's a characteristic you should be looking at. He said he moved on from Brighton and Newcastle quite quickly. What's to say he doesn't move on from from Manchester United to Real Madrid or Barcelona in a few years? And to that I would say, no disrespect, but Manchester United and Newcastle and Brighton, when Manchester United comes calling, it's always difficult to say no. We're still in that position right now. We're clinging on to it, but we're still in that position. I don't worry about anything like that. I just worry about getting someone through the door who can do the job at the best level, and Dan Ashworth is that. And no matter how long he stays for, he's going to rebuild our club, and he's going to be a huge improvement on what we have now. And it's a really exciting time. So love Keno, but to me, that isn't something I'd be looking at, and I feel like that's just finding a negative in a really positive situation. But on the 250 million, how would you spend that? Because I was looking and breaking this down this morning, and we're very rumoured to be in for Elise, 60 million on a right winger. I know Mark had a debate about this on why would we be going for a right winger when we've got Rashford and Garnacho. And why would we be spending that amount of money on someone? Elise is going to want to come in and be a first teamer, but does he even get into the first team right now? And that whole conversation. I do think if Anthony doesn't improve and we don't see more of Ahmad, we do need to go for a right winger, because Garnacho is predominantly a left winger. He's done brilliantly on the right, but he's predominantly a left winger. And we need depth. Like, Ahmad, I'm hoping can be that, but we've not seen enough. Anthony so far isn't good enough. Michael Elise, I think we do need a right winger. It wouldn't be on the top of my priorities, it really wouldn't be. But if we go for Elise, that's probably like 60 million of the budget wiped out. A lot of talk about us going for Branthwaite from Everton, and I've got actually a little exclusive scoop on this to bring into the show in a second. Branthwaite's going to cost you mega money. I know Everton are in financial difficulty, but if they stay in the Premier League, Branthwaite's going to cost you mega money. And the reason why it's going to be is it's not as simple as Man United knocking on Everton's door saying, we know you've got financial difficulty, we want Branthwaite now for, 40, 50 million. That's not the case. Branthwaite's 21 years old. He has Spurs, Arsenal, Real Madrid, Chelsea, all interested in him from reports that are coming out. If you drum up competition for a player, Everton are in control of the price tag. If we bid, you know, you could have Real Madrid or Chelsea or Arsenal all bidding as well. And that brings the price higher. Branthwaite is hot property. A lot of clubs are going to want to go for him. And people say, really, Real Madrid? Ancelotti, the connection with Everton, apparently he's really interested. Real Madrid need a centre-back. He's young. He can build for the future. We know Real Madrid are building a very young team right now that has got very high potential for the future. So Branthwaite is going to be a player that's I think, going to move on in the summer. I think someone's going to come and pick him up. Everton need to sell. But they don't necessarily have to give him to Manchester United for a low fee, unless they get relegated and then the price will come down. But if they've got competition, Everton are in control because they know they're going to be able to sell him. So that's going to be a hefty fee. I have a lot of friends who are Everton fans. I actually went to university in Liverpool, sadly. Liverpool's a great city apart from the football team. But so I have a lot of friends and they're saying that they think he's going to be better than John Stones, that good. Like, they want to get a good fee for him. So that's going to cost you. I mean, I was thinking like 70 to 80 million for Branthwaite, honestly. Then you'd look to go for another centre-back. You know, Romano said that we're going to look to go for 2 centre-backs. Todibo seems the most likely to me. His price tag was rumoured to be about 30 to 35 million, so that brings that price down a little bit. But then you're looking at a striker. What's that going to cost you, like 50 to 60? You're already on 225 mil there, and you've not even thought about De Jong. You've not even thought about a midfielder when we desperately need to go for a midfielder. So where do you budget? Do you sacrifice the right winger? Do you only go for 1 centre-back? What do you do in this situation? Get in the comments and get your super chats in how you would spend that money, because I'd be very interested to know people's priorities. I really want to go for an established striker that can partner Højlund. I also massively think we need a centre-back, but I also think we need a midfielder. But then right wing is something that I do think we need to go for. If I'm going to be honest, if I was going to sacrifice one of them positions, it probably would be the right winger. Purely because I think we've got that covered enough with the likes of Rashford and Garnacho and Ahmad. And you've got Matt, who is not a winger, but he can play the left-sided forward. That was his best position for Chelsea. I think you can cover them roles. Whereas midfielder, we need. Centre-backs, desperate. You can't go into another season with just having Højlund. So you've got to prioritise it the moment that Manchester United are in, where we need a lot of positions. And obviously, I'm just guessing there at the budget, but you're still going to have to sell to get up to that 250 million mark. You've got a super chat in from Young Tiavari saying, for Dan Ashworth to leave Barcelona or Real Madrid in a couple of years, it means he would have to succeed at United, so I'll take it. Great super chat, I agree with that. MB says, live first date in the Goldbridge Arms, someone set it up. Oh, do you know what? That's actually a really good idea for a show. We can use the Goldbridge Arms not only for footballing shows, we can use it for anything. It's a pub. You know, we could do our own rendition of first dates and see how it goes. Sidemen, everyone watches, you know, the Sidemen 20 versus 1. We could do Goldbridge Arms 20 versus 1. Let's get it started. Honestly. And what am I setting myself up for here? But yeah, get in the comments who you would want to go for. 15 Demon says Tony Watkins, Neves, Branthwaite, Frimpong. Would not mind that in the slightest. João Neves would be incredible. He's going to cost you an arm and a leg. I'm just reading some of these comments and they're absolutely making me laugh. The dating stand at the pub with Beth and Ricky on Friday evenings. Oh, I don't eat. Honestly, you guys, you crack me up. Get some candidates in. De Ligt may be sold for just 45 million, someone put in there. De Ligt's one that I think I can see us getting suckered into, but De Ligt isn't a priority for me. I loved De Ligt when he first came onto the scene. He's not done great at Juventus or Bayern Munich. I'd be avoiding that one, even though I do think he's a good centre-back. I think this is where it comes into play. I think if we were going into the summer with Ten Hag dictating the transfers again, I think De Ligt would be coming in to Manchester United. I think we go into the summer with Dan Ashworth and a recruitment team. I don't think De Ligt comes into Manchester United. I think we go for someone different. I think that's the differences that we're going to see. But speaking about where we're going to spend our money, a big chunk of our money could go on a midfielder this summer. A lot of people saying we need a midfielder. What profile of midfielder do we need, though? Do we need a box-to-box or do we need a holding midfielder? Because we're only going to get one. A lot of the reports coming out that Manchester United want to focus on defensive and attacking reinforcements, which makes me think we're not going to go heavy on any midfielder. It makes me think that we've got that the club think we've got enough there for now. I think it would be a mistake not to go for a midfielder this summer. That's why I think we keep getting linked to Elise. We do need improvements on our wings and our forward line, and not like improvements because, you know, Højlund, Rashford and Garnacho are good, but we need competition and we need depth. Like, we absolutely do need that. And Højlund, of course, needs someone who's going to compete with him for a striker and just going to be there and be able to train with him so he's not the only striker at the club. Of course, that needs to happen. But we keep getting told, the reports keep saying United need forward and defensive reinforcements. We do need midfield. We really do. We don't need a cam, in my opinion. We don't need like a number 10 because we've got Bruno, we've got Mason Mount. That's more than good enough. We've got players who can play there if needs must. Box to box wise, we've got Kobbie Mainoo, we've got Eriksen, you've got McTominay, and you've got Mason Mount can play there. Realistically, I think Eriksen's going to go. Is McTominay going to get sold? And then you just kind of with Kobbie Mainoo, you probably do need another box to box in there, unless someone's coming up through the academy. But you do need another box to box because Kobbie Mainoo's brilliant and he's one of the first names on the team sheet, but he's. You know, you can't, he's 18. He's not going to be able to play every game, and you want to be able to have it so if he does come off or isn't available, there's not a massive drop-off. He's so important to us. We need a press-resistant box-to-box midfielder. I'm sure of it. But what we also need is someone who can play number 6, because you've only got Casemiro. I can bet my bottom dollar we're not going to sign Amrabat permanently. Casemiro, you know, he's not getting any younger. I do want him to stay another year. I really do. I think he's really important to us. I think he's super important. But I think we need to invest in like a young sort of Casemiro to be able to take that role over from him, and someone who can be that, you know, number 6 that's you know, technically good enough to move forward the way Casemiro can, but also he's just a destroyer in there as well. You could go for a hybrid 6 and 8. There is that profile of midfielder on the market. You'd have to look for that profile of midfielder, but ideally you'd probably need 2 midfielders or at least a hybrid 8 and 6. So what would you go for? Well, Frenkie de Jong, he's not a destroyer, but he can play as a 6 and an 8. He's definitely not a destroyer. A lot of people telling me they think if you played a midfield of Bruno, Kobbie Mainoo and Frenkie de Jong, it'd be too lightweight, and I can understand where you're coming from. But we know that Erik ten Hag saw Frenkie de Jong as a number 6. That's who he wanted to bring in to be his number 6. There's different types of number 6. You wouldn't say, and I'm not saying Jorginho's like Frenkie de Jong, but you wouldn't say Jorginho is a destroyer. You wouldn't say Michael Carrick is a destroyer. Michael Carrick and Jorginho shouldn't even be in the same sentence, but you look at, you know, different profiles of a number 6. You can have a number 6 that is super intelligent, that knows where to be at the right time, reads the passes, is always in the right position, is anticipating, is a leader, is directing the play, is looking at the play in front of him, he's scanning, and he's great in possession. You can have that sort of number 6. It doesn't have to be a destroyer. There's different sort of profiles. So Frenkie de Jong was an option that Erik ten Hag was looking at to play a number 6. He was his first choice when he first came into the club. Frenkie de Jong, is this saga going to happen again this summer? Well, if Frenkie de Jong wants to leave and Barcelona want to let him go, I can absolutely see us getting pulled into it because Erik ten Hag, he loves him. He's obsessed with him. But the reports are coming out that Manchester United will refuse to be drawn into another long-running transfer saga surrounding Barcelona midfielder Frenkie de Jong this summer, according to reports. Sir Jim Ratcliffe will oversee crucial business in his first transfer window as a minority owner, and he is keen to wipe out the overpaying culture at Old Trafford. But the La Liga giants are said to have slapped a 90 million asking price on Frenkie de Jong's head, which Ratcliffe simply isn't willing to meet, as he helps fund the start of the INEOS recruitment drive. So basically, Manchester United are very interested in bringing Frenkie de Jong in the summer, if Frenkie de Jong is going to leave and is open to leaving and Barcelona want to let him go. But according to this report, Barcelona want 90 million for him, which Manchester United just simply can't do. But the report claims that United believe a 70 million is more realistic valuation and have told Barcelona they will not be held to ransom or drawn into another tiresome transfer chase. So on Frenkie de Jong, salary is absolutely huge. That's another issue. When you're signing Frenkie de Jong, I wouldn't go over the 300 grand a week mark. And currently he's on His wage was meant to be around 600, but I think he's on 450. I don't know what it exactly is, but it's massive. He's the highest paid player in Barcelona. So there's no way, you know, our wage structure is our wage structure. I think our highest paid player is Rashford. The rumour is, with bonuses and everything, it can go up to 375 grand a week for Rashford, which is mental money. I think below that you've got Sancho, Casemiro, Varane, all on the 300 to 350 mark. Sancho's going to go in the summer. Varane's probably going to go in the summer. Casemiro, I would love him to stay for another year. I think he's worth that for another year. I really do. I just think he's important to us, and especially while we're, you know, building this midfield. I think him and Kobbie Mainoo as a partnership is good for now. And, you know, if you bringing someone else in to kind of take over that role, Casemiro being there is good. But if you bring De Jong in on over 300 grand a week, I highly doubt you keep Casemiro on that as well. I just highly doubt the club do it. So it's a catch-22, really. Do you get De Jong in and get rid of Casemiro? Because I doubt the club's going to bring them both in. How much do you pay for De Jong's wage? Is he even going to want to lower his wage to that, which is crazy because that's like our highest wage structure. You don't want to break our wage structure when we're just kind of getting it under control and we're getting told that we want a healthy wage structure in at the club. So it's a tough situation. What I would say is you're definitely not paying 90 mil. We agreed a deal for Frenkie de Jong, not last year, but the year before, for 80 million, I think it was. That's what Barcelona agreed the deal with Manchester United. The only reason it didn't happen is because De Jong didn't want to go. And I think we all know why that was. You know, we know how much his wage is per week. And also his girlfriend loves the city, doesn't she? But no, I'm, you know, if Barcelona was his dream club, it's his dream club. But I'm not desperate for a player who doesn't want to play for Manchester United. Man United, for me, like, it's a dream for any player to play at Manchester United, in my opinion. Obviously, if you know, support different teams, I get it, and I'm not forcing everyone to come to Manchester United, but it's a brilliant place to come. If you don't want to come, you don't want to come. But in terms of the price, for me, 70 million would be a fair price for Frenkie de Jong at this point. It really, really would. And I think Barcelona, with the financial difficulties that they're in, I think they would take that. It's just whether Frenkie de Jong wants to come and whether you guys, as Manchester United fans, think that's the right profile of a midfielder for us to go for. Look, the way I'm looking at it is I feel like it's really hard to say no to Frenkie de Jong because I think he's excellent. He's press resistant. He's good on the ball. His anticipation's good. He reads the game well. He's a top player. He really is a top player, and he suits Erik ten Hag's system down to the ground. If we're going to continue with Erik ten Hag and build a team that suits ten Hag's system and is at the elite level, Frenkie de Jong fits that. So for me, it's hard to say no if we are continuing with ten Hag and we're going down that road. He's a brilliant midfielder. But should it be our priority? If you said to me now, you can get Frenkie de Jong in the summer on 300 grand a week for 70 million, I would do it. I'm going to be honest. I would do it. Because I think he's a great player that would improve us massively, and it adds depth to that midfield. And you're looking at the midfield and you're looking at the options and you're thinking, that's good. Like, that is elite. And he fits Ten Hag down to the ground. So for me, he'd be something I'd be more than happy to go for. But I wouldn't overspend massive money. I won't go over 75, 80 million for him. And I also wouldn't pay ridiculous wages because I don't want us to fall down that rabbit hole again. And I don't think the club would do it under this new Sir Jim regime and under Dan Ashworth and everything like that as well. Del gifted a United Stand membership. Thank you very much, legend of the chat. Colin Grice says, De Jong does nothing but talk about not leaving. And Daniel Greg says, should go for Yeni Yoro instead. Very good. Yeni Yoro is someone that I've been looking at a little bit, and obviously I think he's 18 years old. It'd be a risk, but he's got huge potential. Huge potential. Colin Felix, Barella from Inter is ideal, proven winner and 26. I like Barella. I think he's a good player, but for me, is that the profile of player we should be going for in Barella? I see him as an attacking midfielder, if I'm going to be honest. But I do like him. I think he's a good player. Ronnie Dodge, with Ashworth, we could go for Newcastle players. Bring Isak in, honestly. Isak is elite, but it won't happen. It won't happen. Newcastle will end up keeping hold of him. And a lot of people are mixed on this in the chat. Let's get a poll going in the chat. Would you want Frenkie de Jong in the summer? Would you want Frenkie de Jong in the summer? That's the poll in the chat. I just want a yes or a no. Under the right circumstances, under the right price tag, would you want Frenkie de Jong, or would you rather go for a João Neves, A lot of people recommended Barea. I like Barea. I think he's a really good player. I just don't think he's the profile that Man United need to be going for right now. João Neves, I'm going to be honest, I've not seen heaps of him, so I'm not going to pretend that I have. But from what I have seen, he looks excellent. And what I've heard of him, he looks excellent. And he's young and he's going to give you, you know, so many years. Bruno Fernandes has spoken super highly of him, about wanting him to join Manchester United. That Portuguese connection. I think he's 19 years old. You know, you add João Neves to Garnacho, Højlund, Mainoo. You really are cooking for the future, aren't you? I mean, if you look at what Real Madrid are doing right now, they've got 19-year-old Bellingham, they've got 23-year-old Vinny Jr. and Rodrigo. They're probably going to get Mbappe. Is Mbappe like 25? You know, they're building a young team for the future, and it's scary what they're doing. You know, João Neves, if he has the future what everyone thinks he's going to have, having a 19-year-old come in who has got a massive future ahead of him and he's physically capable, is good on the ball, and I think from what I've heard and from what I've seen, he's built for the Premier League. It's really exciting. You've then got Højlund, who's just turned 21. You've got Garnacho at 19, Mainoo at 18, you know, João Neves at 19. Like, that is super exciting. And then you've got the experience with Casemiro in there as well, and Bruno. So you've got an experience mixed with youth. International 2675 wouldn't spend on a right wing. We've enough at club and on loan. Do you want De Jong in the summer? Hell yeah or no? Turn your votes in the chat. The only thing is with João Neves, which is absolutely true, Shane Smith says João Neves will be too expensive. The rumour is that Benfica want 100 mil for him, which just isn't plausible for us. So, you know, look at the amount they sold Enzo Fernandez for. They get bang for their buck, that club. They really do. So, for me, if it's 100 million, we just don't have that to spend on a midfielder right now. But then you've got to look at what he gives you in the future. You know, Real Madrid paid 115 million for Jude Bellingham. Do you think they're sat there thinking, oh, we overpaid for him at 19? No, they're not, because he's absolutely brilliant and he's been insane since he's come into the club, and they've got him for probably the next decade. The thing is, we've been burnt so much in the past by the likes of, you know, the Antonys, the Lukakus. You know, some would say even Pogba. Pogba didn't live up to what we thought he was going to be, even though he had some good moments for United. We've spent a lot, Maguire 80 mil. We've spent big fees on players and they've not worked out, and it's bit us. It really has bit us and it's scarred us. No one talks about spending the amount you spend on a player if they're successful. If you buy João Neves for 100 million, right, but he's a star midfielder in Manchester United for the next decade, no one's saying we shouldn't have spent 100 million on João Neves. It's just whether it does pay off and it's worth the risk. You know, if we hadn't spent millions on crap over the years, we could have afforded these deals. But because we're at the point where we need so many different positions and we can't afford to spend that chunk of the budget on just one position, we can't go in for deals like this. João Neves looks like an excellent prospect. And if he's what people think he's going to be, he's worth 100 million. If he does, you know, fulfil what the hype is around him. But Man United aren't in a position where they don't have the luxury where they can spend 100 million on one player right now, because we need a centre-back. We need probably two midfielders, probably need two centre-backs. We need a striker. People say we need a right-back. People say we need a right wing. So you've got to cut your cloth accordingly. KFJ, I'll be very disappointed if we spend over 50 million on a player this summer. We need cheap talent. Anyway, going to move on with the show a little bit, but get your opinions in on that. And the poll with De Jong right now is, would you want De Jong in the summer? 46% say hell yeah, 54% say no. If your answer is no, get your opinions in why you wouldn't. Is it because he's turned us down before in the past and you want players that want to play for this club? Because for me, De Jong just fits what Ten Hag wants like a glove. But are different profiles more of a priority for you? That probably is probably what it is. Matt Holt, member for 4 months. Beth wanted De Jong means we shouldn't go anywhere near him. Thank you, Matt. Excuse me, right, I know people have doubted my talent ID with the Onana and Mount. First of all, Mount hasn't had a fair chance, I say this every time. Second of all, Onana redemption arc incoming and a Beth Tucker redemption arc incoming. Just stay tuned, stay tuned. I'm going to be honest, it's not the be-all and end-all if we do or don't get De Jong in the summer. I think he's the right profile, but I understand why you'd want to go for different profiles, and I'm on that as well. Like, it's not something I've thought massively in great detail about. He's just an elite player that I think we should be looking at. But there's other profiles that we could be looking at, like, going for as well. Centre-back is paramount, exactly. Centre-back's top of my wish list, along with a striker. Interesting on KF saying, are we disappointed if we spend over 50 million on a player this summer? I think we're going to, because we're looking at Branthwaite and he's not going to be cheap. A lot of people saying if Everton go down. I don't think Everton will go down. Onana is another one. Onana at Everton is someone that Ten Hag I know likes. And he's a good profile of a midfielder, the type of profile that we would need. Another one that's really highly rated, Premier League proven, someone that I quite like, Onana at Everton. Is that someone who you'd want to go for? But that brings us into the loans. So I want to talk about this, the failed loans of Hannibal and Donny van der Beek. So it's coming out from a Spanish outlet that Sevilla have no intention to sign Manchester United midfielder Hannibal Mejbri on a permanent deal at the club at the end of the season. The midfielder was anticipated to be a key player for the Spanish side, but that has not happened. The 21-year-old has played just 38 minutes in 2 appearances for the club. Mejbri's commitment and attitude are a concern for Sevilla more than his footballing ability, and the manager is unimpressed. I mean, that's not good to hear. When they say his commitment and attitude, I don't know what they really mean by that, because to me, when I've seen Hannibal, he's always seen super committed, super passionate to play for the badge, and Ten Hag is very, very, very meticulous on attitude and commitment, and he's given Hannibal chances this season. The one thing I would say is I think what they mean, and I could be reading it wrong, but from what I've seen from the outside looking in, is I think they don't trust him in terms of being on the pitch. He's such a risk. Like, he's getting yellows left, right and centre. He's a red card, walking red flag for a red card. I think that's kind of what it is there for them. I mean, Hannibal should have gone for Everton. It's as simple as that. And this is an exclusive from the United Stand, that the information we got told is that Everton really wanted to bring Hannibal in on loan in January, and the club's preference, Man United's preference, was for Hannibal to go to Everton, because they really like Branthwaite and they really like Onana, and they wanted to build relationships and potentially build a good relationship so we could get Branthwaite and Onana at a cheaper fee potentially in the summer, if that's a road we did want to go down. Also, you could have money knocked off them players if Everton wanted to sign Hannibal permanently in the summer. And for me, I think Hannibal will end up moving on. I just don't see him as being at the level that is needed for us going forward. I think he's a good player. I think he's a really good player, and I wanted to see what he did on loan. But if you could get 25 million for Hannibal, that would be a good deal, and it helps us with FFP. Really, it does. So even though I like Hannibal a lot, I think his commitment's good, and from what I've seen from him earlier on in the season, I do think he had potential, but I just don't think he's at the level going forward. You know, you've got Bruno, you've got Mount. For me, he's not really a box-to-box properly. It's just not something that I don't see him having a long-term future at United. So you'd want to sell him ideally. His loan failing at Sevilla isn't good for Man United. It's really poor, because there was a buy option in there for around 20 million, and they're not going to trigger that. And if he's not had a good spell on loan, does that put off other clubs going for him? I personally think the club should have put the foot down and enforced the move to Everton. Few reasons. First of all, Premier League, so you get to see him every week properly. And second of all, he suits Sean Dyche. Just the way I said Frankie de Jong suits Ten Hag like a glove, I think Hannibal suits Sean Dyche like a glove. Physical, get stuck in, you know, his work rate's incredible when he's on the pitch. That's what Sean Dyche likes. He strikes me as a player that Sean Dyche would really like. I would have liked him to see to go to Everton, and then at the end of the season, when we're trying to negotiate for a Branthwaite or an Onana, it makes things easier. So I think that was a mistake on the club by not enforcing him to go to Everton in the Premier League, where we've already got a kind of a connection to, and probably easier for Hannibal to get settled in at, and he suits Sean Dyche, the manager. So unfortunate. Maybe Everton will go back in for him in the summer if they do really like him, but this loan is going to put clubs off, which is unfortunate, because I think Hannibal's a good player and he deserves a decent move. So hopefully he can turn it around. I really hope he does. You know, he needs to. Maybe it's a learning curve for him in his career, but it's unfortunate. It really is. Someone said player power strikes again. I think it was the fact that Sevilla wanted Hannibal in the summer, so Hannibal wanted to kind of fulfil that, but the club should have put the foot down on a loan that they thought was best. You know, if Man City had a player wanting to go on loan and they wanted to go to a club, but they thought for the player's development it would be better to go to a different club. I think, we don't know for sure, but I think City would pursue the club that's going to help the player the most. And I think Everton would have helped Hannibal the most. So I think the club should have put the foot down on that. But it is what it is. But another failed loan in Donny van der Beek, I'm going to talk about that in a second. But if we could somehow use the Hannibal deal to get money off Branthwaite or Onana, that would be good for us in the summer. But that's what Man United should have put the foot down in January on the back of that, because who knows if Everton are going to even want to go back in for Hannibal in the summer. Guanta Mila says, Mason Mount, Frankie de Jong and Kimmich. Mason Mount 7, give Frankie the 8 and Kimmich the 6 and sell Bruno. What do you make of that, guys? What do you make of that? I personally wouldn't sell Bruno, but I did see a report the other day saying nobody's off the table in the summer to be sold other than like Garnacho, Manu and Højlund. Like, no one's off the table. Bruno's our captain. Ten Hag loves him. I see him staying, and I would personally, I think it'd be a huge mistake to get rid of him. That's my personal opinion, but I know a lot of people have different opinions on Bruno. What I would say is, if anyone's going to be competition for Bruno, it's going to be Mason Mount. Different sort of number 10. I think Mason Mount's a good player. He's only 24. Hopefully he recovers from this injury and comes back stronger. Let's see what happens. Kimmich, I think, is going to end up going to Man City, but he is a player that wants a Premier League move in the summer and probably wants his last big contract. So Man United usually be all over that. Are they going to be all over it this time because they can get him on a cheaper transfer fee? Because the rumours were going for players that only have 1 year left on the deal. Kimmich falls in that category, but he is 29. Should we really be going for a 29-year-old? And his wages are going to be big, so I don't see us going for Kimmich. I think City go for Kimmich as like a luxury sort of signing because they can afford to do that because they've already built a very strong squad and starting 11. Shadil Madi says, it's important to remember that Manchester United tends to command high prices. We shouldn't get overly excited about the new appointments. Things might not be the same as in Brighton as at Newcastle. Kadishil, this is interesting because I was speaking to my dad about this and I was filling my dad in on Dan Ashworth and like what he'd done in the past and talking to him about it. And he was saying, obviously, it's really exciting and the most you can do is get the best in class, and that's what Sir Jim's aiming to do, so all credit there. But it is a different job taking on Man United to Newcastle and Brighton. It is, because as soon as a club knows Man United's coming, they're going to add Man United tax on, they're going to up the price tag. It always is going to happen. It's just kind of Dan Ashworth's job, and it's crucially important, as well as the whole team that they're bringing in, is to squash that reputation of we overpay for players because we're Man United. We need to stand firm, and the part of the new regime has to be that we will not overpay for players, and we've got to stand firm on it, because the second we do, clubs will take us for a ride again, and it's the start of a new era. You know, it's a new team of people behind the scenes. We need to set a new precedent that this Manchester United is not going to overpay, and we are good at recruitment, and you're not going to twist our arm, you're not going to bend us over. We are going to do recruitment right and properly. And if you kind of bow down to a high price in the first window that you're in, it just sets a complete wrong precedent. So I'm with you, Shadil. There's huge work to be done, of course. But on Donny van der Beek, I just wanted to bring this in. It was interesting. I sent this article to Ricky because we know he's such a Van der Beek fan. And the comment he came back with is he's found a way to defend him still, which is mad. But, and Donny, by the way, such a lovely guy. I wish him so well for his career. I feel like we ruined him, and I'm so sorry for that. I really am. I just feel for the guy. But on Donny van der Beek, he came on for the injured Hugo Larsson after 21 minutes during their clash on Saturday. This was for Frankfurt. However, unlike most substitutes, he was not able to continue for the remainder of the game, so he was substituted as a substitute, with Frankfurt choosing to replace him with 6 minutes of normal time left. After the match, Frankfurt's boss confirmed the substitution was not due to injury or Van der Beek's performance. He explained that, unfortunately, I had to replace Donny again. This is because we knew he wouldn't be able to keep up the power for 70 minutes. Sadly, for Van der Beek, obviously this is just another setback. Feel for him. Came on at the 21st minutes and was subbed at the 84th. He started at Frankfurt. When he first came into the club, he started. Then he got moved to being a substitute. He came on. He got hooked at half-time the other game. I remember that. He started one of the games and got hooked at half-time. Then he became a substitute. Now he got brought on after 21 minutes, but then got hooked at the 84th with six minutes left. I feel for him, because all I wanted for him is to get his career back on track, because he was a good player when we bought him. We just bought the complete wrong player for the profile of what Ollie needed at the time. And I don't think he's suited to the Premier League. But I feel for the guy, I really do, because he just can't get his career back off the ground. Also, they chose to leave Van der Beek out of the Europa Conference League squad list. Now then, they signed a few players in January and they could only put 3 in. I think they signed 5 players and they could only put 3 in, so Van der Beek missed out, which, I mean, isn't a good sign. But it's just, I mean, this is a club we want to buy, Donny, at the end of the loan. Like, this isn't looking likely either. So Donny van der Beek's probably going to end up back at Carrington in the summer, and that's really sad. Who's going to go for him? You know, he's not. If Frankfurt don't go for him, who's honestly going to go for him? It's like, I feel for the guy, and it's this is a player we need to sell in the summer. We really need to sell him. So hopefully things will turn around, but it's not looking good at the moment. I sent that article to Ricky, and he said, what I can gather out of it is it wasn't due to performance. He just doesn't think he's fit enough. And I thought, Ricky will always find a way, but I hope hopefully that is the case. He can get fitter and he can get into his team. I just don't see it. It's all about how you start somewhere, and it's a short time period, January to the summer, the second half of the season. It really is a short time period, and you've got to start off with a bang and make your imprint quickly, or else you can easily fade into the background and be forgotten about. And I'm scared that's going to happen for Donny van der Beek. But Hannibal and Donny van der Beek, 2 unsuccessful loans of 2 players we want to sell for money in the summer so we can add to our budget. We've got to look at this and learn from it in the future. Anyway, the last little bit of the show, Eddie Howe got asked on Dan Ashworth and if he wants to stay at Newcastle. Okay, no, sorry, I read that wrong. Eddie Howe on if Dan Ashworth said he wants to stay at Newcastle this week. Eddie Howe answered, no. Whatever happens, we want a quick resolution, and that's coming in from the Daily Mail. So that is quite blunt. You know, Eddie Howe turning round, gets asked if Dan Ashworth has said he wants to stay at Newcastle this week. If Dan Ashworth was staying at Newcastle, if Dan Ashworth was definitely staying at Newcastle, the answer would have been, yeah, Dan Ashworth's a really important part of this project. We can't wait to continue working with him. But he quickly answered, no, whatever happens, we want a quick resolution. To me, that seems like Dan Ashworth's going, we need to replace him as quickly as possible, and hopefully it won't affect us. That's how that reads to me. So again, more positive news coming out on Dan Ashworth. I think Dan Ashworth will become Manchester United's sporting director. I'm very confident in it. It's just whether we end up paying out the compensation or whether we wait for his garden leave to be over. 10 million is a huge compensation for a sporting director, but I think it's worth paying it in the long run of what is going to save us. But it's just whether Sir Jim and INEOS want to do that. It's a question of whether we pay the compensation or not, but I think he will eventually, if we pay it or not, be Manchester United's sporting director. And Eddie Howe's response there, it's just like, it's obvious. I mean, you couldn't make it more obvious if you tried. Dan Ashworth's going to be at Manchester United. Has Dan Ashworth said he wants to stay at Newcastle this week? No, we just hope there's a quick resolution. You know, it's like asking me, say if, for example, if someone was leaving the United stand and someone asked me on here, say if no one's leaving the United stand, but say if, for example, Ricky was leaving the United stand, which he's not, but if someone said, Beth, is Ricky leaving the United stand? Say he was rumoured to be, going on, who knows, another channel. Beth, is Ricky leaving the United stand? If he wasn't leaving, I would be like, of course he's not leaving. Of course he's not leaving. Ricky leaving? No, he's part of our team, and we love the shows with Ricky. If he was leaving and I knew he was leaving, and you asked me if he said he wanted to stay, that's more of a response I'd give, is what Eddie Howe's given there. No, whatever happens next, we need a quick resolution. So he's going to end up going. It's just when or whether we pay the compensation fee or not. Tom Best says, I feel that we need to be careful in who we buy. Tom Best, absolutely we need to be careful, because we can't put a foot wrong. We're walking such a tightrope in terms of budget, we can't put a foot wrong. Other clubs can. Like I always say, not every transfer is going to pay off. But because Man United are trying to catch up and they're trying to get back up to the top, we need every transfer to be a success at this point. We can't afford to waste money on someone that isn't going to work. So we have to be really careful, and we have to do massive background checks and be completely sure on the money that we're spending on a player, and not not go into anything rash or with a panic button like what we've done in the past, and we've had our fingers burnt through it. We really have. But everyone, thank you for watching the show. Ricky isn't leaving. He's getting a new contract into the summer. Put him on a 10-year deal, do it Chelsea style. But thank you, everyone. I love you and leave you. Really good interaction to the show as per usual. Friday night. What are you doing with your Friday night? Tell you what I'm doing. I literally am having the biggest chill night ever. I'm going to have a little bit of a pamper night, and I'm going to stick a nice film on and just going to have a night in. Last week it was going out, having a bit of a party. This week I'm going to have a chilled one. What are you doing? Let me know. And get in all your comments about today's show. I'll be really interested to hear your feedback and your opinions. I always look through the comments to have a look what everyone's saying. So thank you, everyone. Dinner with Son. He needs to show me his identity. We'll get a date sorted at the Goldbridge Arms. I think the Goldbridge Arms is actually fully booked this weekend, but you never know. We can pencil it in. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll love you and leave you. Have a lovely Friday. We'll be back with the evening show later. Mark will be back, and we'll see you on the next one.